Daily Mail has a headline, Trump was right. By the way, Daily Mail goes in all directions, so this is not a conservative statement. In fact, the Daily Mail had two moronic articles attacking me. I mean, truly moronic. What they have is they have so many writers that they just, whatever the writer sends in. So there was actually an article in the Daily Mail about 2 years ago. American talk show host licks forks from floor. Something to that effect. And it was based on a very pathetic reaction to a comment that I made in a fireside chat that some Daily Mail writer saw, where I said, you can't spend your life avoiding germs and being safe. It is not a good way to live. So I gave the example that if I'm at a restaurant and one of my utensils falls to the floor, I don't give it back to the waitress, that it's been contaminated. I will use it. So it has talk show host licks utensils from floor. I never said I lick it. They added lick. I mean, I'm only telling you this story so that you'll understand I don't have this predisposition to like the Daily Mail. Daily Mail headline, Trump was right. California is adopting former president, missed the word, Donald Trump's plan to thin out the state's 33 million acres of forests with controlled burns and raking the woodland floor after state officials essentially laughed off the former president's idea a few years ago. Trump had suggested in 2018 that California start sweeping its forest floors of debris that often aids in the spread of wildfires. But by August 2020, at the peak of the state's wildfire season, his suggestion became an ultimatum when he withheld wildlife financial aid on the basis of California's failure to clear its forests of dead trees, branches, and leaves. Now California is putting Trump's plan into practice as groups of 12-person crews set about a $500 million effort to thin the state's forest with controlled burns and sweeping the forest floor of pines, redwoods, and firs, according to a recent Bloomberg report. I see again the forest fires are starting, Trump said at the 2020 rally in Pennsylvania. They're starting again in California. I said, you got to clean your floors. You got to clean your forests. There are many, many years of leaves and broken trees, and they're like so flammable. You touch them and it goes up. Maybe we're just going to have to make them pay for it because they don't listen to us, he added. And now they're doing it. You know how many arenas Trump was right about? His batting average on positions was like 900. But people got preoccupied with his tweets and his demeanor, etc. I don't know how people can not think clearly on the moral issues. You don't like Donald Trump, but you do like the United States, so you don't ask, are his policies good for the United States? Or the asininity of, is he a role model for children? Is Joe Biden a role model for children, by the way? Joe Biden's a crook. I'll take Donald Trump's character over Joe Biden in a nanosecond. And I'm pretty well aware of the Trump flaws. Donald Trump enriched his family in the private sector. Joe Biden enriched his family in the public sector. That's called a crook. That's corrupt. Joe Biden will say anything to win office. Anything. And he did. Or in the case of last year, nothing. Said nothing and won. Anyway, I've never understood this notion, not a role model for children. You know, I had plenty of role models. Let's talk about male role models, beginning with my father. Which is pretty, I would say, what would you say is more important as a role model, your father or the President of the United States? What would you say how many times more important is your dad than the President as a role model for character in your life? 1,000 times more important? 100,000 times more important? Well, we'll say 100,000 times. What about your teachers? What about your rabbi, priest, or minister? What about your camp counselor? What about your uncle? You know how many role models I had of decent men? I mean, did it ever occur to me as a kid? Look at Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was another crook. Look at Lyndon Johnson. All of a sudden, the fools of the left, which is redundant, every leftist is a fool. Liberals run the gamut, but every leftist is a fool, otherwise they wouldn't be on the left. They wouldn't be a leftist. They could be left of center, but they wouldn't be a leftist. And all of a sudden, the president is a role model for children. When did that happen before? Was John Kennedy a role model for children? Orgies at the White House? Anything comparable in the Trump administration for 4 years? Anything comparable? Now, I have no political agenda here because he's no longer president. When I said this while he was president, oh, well, yeah, he's pro-Trump. No, I'm pro-truth. I'm pro-clear thinking. None of you believed anyway. They don't. This has truly been a challenge in my life. Do leftists believe what they say? Do they really believe men give birth, for example? Do they believe that? Do they believe that the disproportionate lack of violinists in the New York Philharmonic among blacks is because of racism? Do they really believe that? How many black kids are raised studying violin proportionately compared to whites? Wouldn't that be the more logical question? Is there a racist reason that they can't study the violin? Poor kids can't study violin? Why not? Anyway, I don't know if they believe what they say. Do they really believe that the president is this moral model for children? Name me one. Calvin Coolidge. But I don't think parents said, look at Calvin Coolidge. This is how I want you to grow up. Okay, let's see here. Roger in West Jordan, Utah, one of my favorite states. Hello, Roger.
Hi, how are you?
Well, thank you. Go ahead, Roger. It's all yours. All right, I'll put him on hold. I know he wants to speak about the Mormon Church in light of the discussion we had earlier, which is important. All of these things are important. Okay, everybody, I want to remind you I'm going to Israel with you in October. There is a banner at my website, Stand With Israel Tour. Take it in while you can, folks. Last year should teach you, live life fully when you can.